Presiding Commissioner Darrel Skiles. He had a special guest this morning, and
Yes.
Representative Mr. Ron Copeland, wherever he went.
We just lost him, but he'll be back. He'll be back.
But good to have Ron in, and good to have you in, sir.
These reps, you never know where they're running around. Oh, there he is.
They're always on the run, that's for sure. No doubt about that.
Look over there, Darrel.
Anyway, we. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it's pretty cool out there this morning. I think we had, I think we had right at zero, maybe 1 or 2 below zero out there in the country. So it's pretty cool out here in the Ozarks. But it's a great time. It's a great time to live in Dent County. I'll tell you, the more you watch the news and so forth and so on, the more you appreciate living in Dent County. So
Yeah, that right.
yeah. We mention every once in a while, even at our commission meetings, that sentiment will be expressed, not just by us, but even people that will come in that might have an issue they want to take up with us. But overall, we've heard that over and over, that thank God we live in Dent County and not some of these places.
The temperature's jumped up to 3. So.
Oh, well, it's on the rise.
So
It's
you
pretty
should feel
nice.
a lot
But
better
yeah,
now.
but I do have a special guest, as you
Yes, you
said, State Representative Ron Copeland. And
Good morning. I'm glad to be here.
appreciate you being here, Ron. There's a lot going on in Jefferson City, and
There's a lot going on in the studio.
well, and I brought my copy of. We just have got a tentative budget available. We talk about that. Ron, I know you all are working on budget up there, and along with other things, and a little thing called redistricting is front and center on the map. So anyway, it's just a busy time for everybody, and I do appreciate your taking time to come in. I know you came down yesterday and met with Wes and I down at Montauk to discuss some issues there. So if you want, Ron, I'll just leave it up to you. Kind of visit with everybody and tell us kind of your take on what's happening and what's going to happen, maybe, and so forth and so on.
I'll never be able to tell you what's going to happen. I
Yeah.
can tell you what's projected to happen. But the session started last week, and it's been a really quick week with redistricting and the governor's supplemental budget that came across the request. So we just this past week we actually agreed on a map, a congressional district map, and now it'll go over to the Senate and they'll discuss it. And
correct me if I'm wrong, but this is all spurred by the census, the new census figures
every 10 years. Every 10 years they do a census and they do redistricting, the congressional, the Senate, and the representative districts. And the Senate and the representative districts are appointed by the governor. They have a committee on each one of them, and they decide what the districts are. Representative and Senate districts, and the congressional districts is just like a bill. Basically, some people from the House and Senate get together and they decide the congressional districts, and it goes through the process of a bill. We vote on it. It goes to the Senate. The Senate votes on it, and we come to agreement on the congressional districts. Now, the representative districts, the committees agree. There's a 20-member panel, and 14 of the 20 have to agree on the districtings, how it's set up throughout the state. And right now, we sent the congressional district to the Senate this past week. On Wednesday, I believe, no, it was Tuesday, I believe, the representative committee had come to an agreement on the representative districts in the state, and they have agreed. So the representative districts are pretty much set. There's not a whole lot more to do that, just the finalization of that. The Senate districts, they cannot agree on. So what's going to happen, the way I understand it, is they will go to a judge or a panel, Supreme Court, or the courts will decide the Senate districts. So so that's where we're at on that. And the congressional districts, what was agreed upon, and I know there's a lot of issues out there. They say 7-1, 6-2. I mean, basically all that is, right now we have 6 Republican representatives in Congress and 2 Democrats. The 7-1 map was we would have had 7 Republicans and 1 Democrat up there. And you've got contention on that. You'll see a lot of people saying the 7-1 map we're not true Republicans if we're not voting the 7-1 map. But I don't think you get true representation because you got Kansas City and St. Louis. If you really get down to and I'm not saying it's gerrymandering or nothing like that, but if you really look down to a representation of 6-2 map, it's probably good for both parties. I mean, I want more for my conservative values, no doubt about that, but you don't want to alleviate the other people that have a side that percentage-wise is in the state.
And I've seen the maps, and to me, the 6-2 map makes much better sense than the 7-1.
Well, if you think about it,
anyway.
as if you go to a 7-1 map, you're going to spend a lot more money in races, competitive races. Democrat and Republican both are going to spend much more money, and I don't really feel that's great for the people of the state. You know, you're just fighting and spending all this money. You already have that stereotypical type about the money in politics. So I think a 6-2 is more representative of the state. It gets 6 strong congressional districts for the Republicans where they can focus on them things, and the Democrats or the 2 get their strongholds, I guess you could say that, but it just makes more sense. And you don't want to alleviate the people that want a voice, and that's what I think that's why they think gerrymandering, when they throw the word gerrymandering out, people are trying to alleviate some of the votes on each side. If the Democrats were in charge, they gerrymander Republicans out. Republicans want to gerrymander Democrats out. And I just want to do what's fair for the state and get a voice for everybody.
You want the best result.
Yeah, I mean, really. I mean, and what the people voted in. We still need to vote. If the people vote Republicans in, they have that conservative value. That's what we should be focused on, But at the same time, you don't want to alleviate the voice.
So then there's the state Senate.
The state Senate race has not been decided. They can't agree upon that.
But those are going to change too, though.
They are going to change.
Your
yes.
district's probably going to change.
My by the agreement they have, yes, my district is going to change. Our district right now is Dent, Shannon, Oregon, and parts of Reynolds, and that's based on population. And due to the census, we went from 35,500, and the census this year has us down around 30,500, roughly estimated. That's pretty close. And so we lost, by the census, 5,000 people.
By the census.
By the census, and this was a bad time to do a census with COVID and the lack of trust in government. I think a lot of people didn't fill that out. Talking to our chamber people in all the districts, a lot of people moved to our rural areas, but people just didn't want to fill the census out, which kind of, falls back on lack of trust in government, I believe. We filled the census out, but we answered 2 questions, male and how had a household, how many people we had in, or that's 3. But I didn't go into their questions of a lot of things that they asked, because a census should be counted how many people's in your household. That's what the census is for, and they use it for other data, and I think people just refuse to answer it.
Well, and I don't blame them. I actually did refuse back in 2010. They sent me the long form. It was 16 pages.
Yeah.
And I told them, I said, no, I'm not doing it. I said, I'll answer the small one. Give me the short one. I said, but you don't need to know where I buy stuff. You don't need to know what my income is. You don't need to know if I have renters in my house. No, that's none of your business, So anyway, it's a census. I said, here, and the census person came there and said, you just saw me. Here I am, really. Mark it down that I am alive. Here I am. And that's it. That's all you need to know. And, oh, no, you need to fill it out. I said, no, I don't need to fill it out. Then that became an argument. And finally, they gave me a short form. I filled it out, and that's it.
If it's a census for a count of the people in your district, and I guess you could even go into your race and, does that go too far? But they do want a minority vote, make sure they're not getting expunged or their voice isn't being heard. But when you get into all the other questions, I think it's why people don't fill it out.
It turns people off.
If they would just send a census, how many people live in your household, above 18 and below 18, I think you would get more accurate thing, because then they don't think the government's using the information on their behalf or for their uses.
So when do you anticipate we'll know what the new House and Senate district lines are
right now,
for Missouri?
Coming back yesterday, they've sent maps out, and I've got copies of the maps, and I'm going to get that out. I'll give that to the newspapers, and they should be able to get that too from the website. So the rep districts, the way I understand it, are pretty much set in stone, and that means I'll end up losing. Right now I'll lose Shannon, Oregon, and parts of Reynolds, and I'll have a full Dent County, and we will pick up Crawford, all of Crawford. So it'll be Dent and Crawford. And the way they got it numbered will change. Right now we're District 143. The way it looks like they're going to keep 120 for this district. So my district number will change, but I'll still be the incumbent running in this district. It's kind of confusing in a way. Looking at the numbers of the census for Dent and Crawford, they're trying to get to 37,000 district, roughly plus or minus a percentage. Dent County has roughly 14,000 people because of the census, and Crawford County has about 23. So that 23 something. So that
But
puts
at least Dent and Crawford County will all be contiguous, one representative. Many counties, I know, I've seen the deals. Some counties will have 3 different reps. The county will be divided
Well,
3 or different
yes.
ways, and it's really, really.
So what happened with this census, the way they interpreting the new rules and regulations on here, if a county, Phelps County used to have 4 reps, and it was divided 4, and it really wasn't fair to Phelps County because they had 40-something thousand people, so they could have had 1 rep and then divided the rest up with other reps. So right now with the new rules, the way I understand it is that if there's enough population for that particular county, they have to have, there's 37,700, they have to have at least 1 full rep for that 37,000. And if there's 40, they'll take them 3,000 and give them sweep up to the county next
Like
to kind of make
Vichy
that
or
up.
something like that. Yeah.
Because, Mary's County, Dent County doesn't have enough, or Crawford County doesn't have enough, but it's nice that them 2 counties are together, because I couldn't imagine. There was a rep that had 8 counties last year, and he's dealing with 8 presiding commissioners or commissioning 8
Boy,
chamber
what
of
a pain.
commerces and all this stuff. I mean, so I couldn't imagine how that
Made me want to quit.
how that representation really would work. I was beneficial to have 3 full counties and a part of a county. Dealing with,
Actually, I can. It would be really frustrating for even county commissions or so forth, when you're trying to get something done for your county and having tried to talk to 8 different reps.
Well,
How crazy it'd be!
and what I don't.
Yeah.
I know the redistricting there's a reason for that, but I've worked really hard in Oregon and Shannon because for economic development, Salem is very far. I'm not bashing or putting them down. Very far advanced as far as economic development issues, and I feel I'm in the middle of helping them out, and they just pull me out and send me somewhere else. I mean, so I'm still going to try to. I feel like my load's going to get heavier because I want to keep doing what I'm going to do, even if I win Crawford. When I do, I should say win, but I'm not going to be that way.
But that is a joint effort with the county and the city to pursue that for economic development.
Yes, it is.
And I know from meetings I'm at, it seems to be a foreign concept for some counties for them to be in the middle of economic development and helping.
It is,
they want to leave it up to a city or somebody else. But
and that goes directly to some of the bills I filed. That if we get into that, I can discuss some of that later on. But But redistricting is the big thing, and the Senate district is kind of the one that's kind of up in the air. We'll go to the courts, and the way I understand it, that has to be done by probably February 22nd. They got so many days to implement that, so at least we know when we file. Now we as reps will know the districts, and we can file in our district. There's several reps that got redistricted together. I mean, so 2 incumbents got filed in with each other, which I was blessed that not to happen. One of the maps had me at one time early on with 3 other reps, with Bill Hardwick and Pulaski, and they had Don Mayhew up in Crawford or Crocker. So
Wow.
right, yeah, the current rep for Crawford County is term limited out, so there's going to be a vacancy there anyway. So
yeah, there's going to be a vacancy. So that was blessing on my part as far as that goes. I mean, so I'm looking forward to that, and meeting new people, and like I said, and one thing in my district before, I had 2 regional planning commissions. The Merrimack Regional Planning and SCOCOG down in Pomona, which it'll be nice to deal with one. I mean, not saying nothing against the other. So now that makes it better for me to move forward as well.
But when you had 2, you got their side, you got MRPC side, it gave you a lot more information about what they believe and what their values are, and versus what MRPC. It's different. It's different people.
The different people and different ways of going about business. Yeah, but
I want to make a plug here. Our regional planning commission is probably at the top of the crop as far as working with legislators and getting information out. Getting information out though for the counties, for the cities, and working with the legislators and across the deal. I mean,
and
not to take anything away from.
And I'm not taking nothing away from Skokog either. They're, they do a great job up here. I'm more familiar because Darrel is part of that, and I see Darrel weekly, so I'm more in tune to Merrimack Regional Planning Commission. But they got some good people down there in Pomona, Cody, and Amy, and all them guys that Trevor do a very good job. It's just fresh back and forth. It's if you deal with one planning commission for the same two counties, it's much easier because it's good. They do a wonderful job up here. They really do. So that's kind of why I feel so bad sometimes. I didn't put a whole lot of effort in them because they're doing such a good job, and I'm working on them down there.
Yeah. So you got redistricting, and that's going to be coming along. Everybody has to file starting February 22nd, I believe it is.
Yep.
Local, I mean, our county races and state and so forth, so on. But of course, then the other biggie, of course, for you guys will be working on budget.
The budget. So far, the governor sent a supplemental over, and he had three main things that he wanted us to look at and get. He asked us to look at it by January 28th and send it back to the Senate because it's got approval. And two of those issues, one was a K through 12 issue for schools. I think it's SARF money or something. I can't. There's so many different acronyms up there. I get confused. But one of them things is for the school districts was Medicaid expansion. I know we voted that down, and the courts trumped us on that. So the money needs to be put out there. They said it was going to run out by February 1st, but they changed that to March 1st. So that's something that needs to be looked at. And then there was one other thing. The 5.5% increase for state employees.
What was that? What did that come out? 5.5.
5.5 is what's being projected, and we're looking at. And the governor's even said this, that we're looking at a landfall of federal funds coming into the state. In a meeting we had with him, he made a comment that our sales tax increases were above what was projected last year. And I think he wanted to say we're 2.2 or something billion dollars from that, which is up from last year. So that's renewable money that we look at. So if the state employees 5% does pass, that will come out of that $2.5 billion because that's something we can expect every year. They're looking at close to $7 billion in the state. $6.5 to $7 billion. Let's start over. $4.5 billion from the CARES ARPA money coming from the state because of COVID, or not from the state, from the federal government. Mm-hmm. So that's not renewable money. So the thing we need to watch out for up there is not spending that on something that we're going to have to ask the citizens to pay every year.
Right.
So I'm going to throw my clip in here. I don't like my grandkids and great-grandkids having to pay for that $4.5 billion down the road, but that's coming to us.
Yep.
But if me as a representative for this district don't fight for some of that money, they're going to send it to St. Louis. They're going to send it back to California.
Somebody's going to get it, right?
Somebody's going to get it, and I disagree with how it comes to us. But as being the representative for this district, I'm going to do everything I can do to get it. It's kind of conflict in our. Most of us probably believe that the federal government should not be
handing out money
and printing money that our grandkids and great-grandkids are going to be paying. I think it's a lack of responsibility,
but it doesn't matter whether we like it or not. When
You're
I'm
right.
on the same page with you, that money's sitting there, and it's going to go somewhere in the state of Missouri. So
Or go back.
Go back. So, but if it goes back, it's going to go to another state.
That's right.
It's not going to go back in the federal coffers and offset the federal debt. So how can the state invest that money? How can we get some of that money here invested in things that provide long-term benefit?
I agree with that.
Citizens.
And that's why what I've been doing as far as the representative, once I found out this money is in, I've been trying contacting the county commissioner, say, what projects do you have that are long lasting that we can invest in, right? And 20 years down the road, we're still getting revenue or being able to profit from that or bring back economic stimulus to the county. You know, just like we went down to Montauk. You know, Montauk was on. I understand it was on a list of improvements several years back, and it got quashed. A lot of money went down to Echo Bluff, which, you know, I wish some of that money would have went to Montauk, but I think investing in Montauk would bring long-term investment to the community.
And that's something you and I have talked about actually since you even were elected was,
Yes.
you know, Montauk gets the short straw when it comes to updating and maintenance. And we've seen that yesterday. I mean, literally siding falling off of the bottom and rotting away and just
and
antiquated
outdated
everything.
electrical and just things that's been built there so long. And do we keep just pumping money into Montauk just to keep it running, or do we invest in it now with these funds, that if we can get some of these federal funds for improvement for our parks, which now parks are one of the big things because of COVID. I mean, we saw that last year. Echo Bluff, you know, if you look at their statistics of what come Echo Bluff, you know, I'll pimp Echo Bluff as far as helping Shannon County. It was close to $120,000 worth of sales tax last year to the county.
And it helps Dent County. A whole bunch of the people on their way down there are coming through Salem, stopping at Walmart.
If you liked it or
restaurants.
not, that's beside the point. It's there, so it is benefiting the community as far as sales tax for that community.
It all works together.
And if we can improve Montauk, I think that we could, you know, conference center, we could get businesses or something to come down there, because, you know, you got the trout park and you got all the, and it's close. You get and that economy would come to Salem and Licking and Houston, and they can canoe, you know. So there's a lot more to, I think. We were looking at what investment can I push that would locally help the whole the county.
And it's not just Echo Bluff. The current River State Park has also sucked a lot of money out, and they're going to be renovating that entire old Alton Box resort down there. I read at what $3.8 million.
No, Echo Bluff, the way I understand it, got somewhere like $3.8 million. I think the current River State Park got $10 million, something
like that.
So they got a lot of. And I'm not saying last year was very quick for me, and I learned a lot. I've probably done more. I've been more on the Senate side this year in the last week and a half than I did all last year. And it's building those relationships with the senators to say, hey, this is what I'd like to see, and get them on board with me, because it comes from the House to the Senate, and if nobody in the Senate likes it, it just dies. You know. So, but yeah, that's one of the things I think here. I'd like to see, and we talked to them last night. I've got meetings with DNR scheduled, Department of Natural Resources. Say, this is where I'd like to see money and put on back on their calendar.
Right, and hope people know that state parks are under DNR. So if you want money to go to Montauk, it has to be deviated to them through the DNR.
And there has been bond issues on that too. So sometimes it's not like taking taxes. They have revenues to pay it back.
But under all the federal money they're getting, there's avenues for that to be funded out of those federal dollars.
A lot of avenues. I mean, and that in of itself, you know, I've been talking to Darrel and Wes about, you know, the paving of coming off of YY into the park. What would that would be a benefit?
Well, see, that's part of where our interest too, and and Wes and I, Commissioner, District 1 Commissioner, we have this FLAP project, Federal Lands Access Program, where we're going to pave that road coming on down the hill all the way down to Tanvat, because that is access to the federal lands there. So our deal has been, well, if the park is going to improve some things coming out of the park going out towards Tanvat, that road along the bluff, it needs work, it needs help, and we could maybe get another federal lands access grant to pave that as well and make that a much better road, because people leave the park and they camp at the park, or they stay there, they fish, but they also go on down into the National Scenic Riverways. They go down towards Tanvat and fish on down there, or they go up from there and go up to rent canoes, or the canoe rental folks come in that way and pick floaters up at the lodge. And I think there was a plan. I mean, there is some plan that's been there, or proposal, some things in the works to possibly build a new lodge, which is one of the things they just desperately need, a new, bigger lodge. So with us trying to work on access, better access coming in from the south side or east side, however that squirrels around, why it just all fits together that now's the time to do something.
I think it helps that the county's investing. If the county's willing to invest, that they look at that as how much investment you guys want, and what return will be to the county as a whole and overall look at that. So yeah.
Yep. Good stuff.
But that's what we've done kind of so far as this first 2 weeks this session. The redistricting had to get out of the way, get across, so we can get that going.
Had to be done.
The only issue that we have with that, we did vote it in. We don't have enough votes to get an emergency clause, and that's kind of confusing in a way. I don't know what's going to happen with that. It's like a bill. So bills go into effect in August 28th. So if we can't get an emergency clause added to our congressional redistricting, they won't be able to even be able to file till after the primary won't be able to be held. So that's still I'm hoping we can fix that, because once it comes back to the Senate, maybe we can get, because we've lost we had enough for Republicans that needed 2/3, and we don't have enough Republicans because there was a lot vote against the emergency clause that didn't like the bill. So
there's a possibility there could have to be a separate primary election maybe later in September.
There is a
because of this
possibility
new-
because of the way the rules are. Is we have to have 2/3 votes to get an emergency clause to put it in effect sooner than August 28th.
That noise you hear is county clerks wailing and gnashing their teeth about that.
They were up
prospect,
this
can
week.
tell
I
you.
talked to Angie. She was
Yes,
up doing a
I
good
know.
job. She does really good for the county up at the courthouse. I mean, up at the Capitol. I've seen her several times up there, just letting the legislators know their concerns and the issues. I mean, the issue I think they're concerned more is putting all the voting in November.
Oh, it's terrible.
It's got a good ideology if you think about it. You get all the
Theory.
people to vote one time. Theory, yeah, there's a theory, but theories aren't always true.
Well, and let's be honest, this redistricting would have been done last year, but in 2020 they couldn't get enough information on the census with COVID, and it threw it all back, and they kept delaying, and I thought sooner or later it's going to catch up to you, and it is now, because they didn't have final totals.
Yeah, and really, it does affect. I hope. Well, the state races aren't really going to be affected. It's the congressional districts. So yeah, that's where they're having their issues on that. So yeah, but we're still blessed to have hopefully get to 6-2, good 6 strong seats that we keep.
Now, also along in the budget, in the big deal of budget, of course, it's a huge deal. You talk about there's a 5.5% pay increase for state workers included. I know MoDOT's been having trouble. Everybody, not just MoDOT, it's everybody. Employers all across the state having trouble keeping employees. Salaries, it's hard to match and hard so on. And the state's really fallen behind on state workers, on teachers' pay, so on. But one of the big things that I know is a lot of talk about is millions and millions and millions are going to be there to help with broadband, high-speed broadband expansion, and that's good news across the state.
Yeah. At his State of the State speech, like he's emphasized again, he's wanting to put $400 million in the broadband, and I would say that's going to come from the 4.5 billion. Because that's something to invest in that's in the future. And if you look
Absolutely.
at broadband, and it's one of those things that there's a lot of things that get connected to that. Realtor. When someone's trying to buy a house, one of the main questions I heard the other day was, what's the internet service like, especially with today's society? People working from home, they were not going to buy a house that doesn't have decent internet because so that's one of the things we can focus on. And there's companies out there working that now, and there's underserved areas and just things like that it's at the top of the list of where we're doing. But like we go right back to, we can provide this stuff, but the people that are going to have to go get it, and work for it. And I'm going to try to keep that information at the top. County, hey, there's $200 million. They need to be ready. I've been telling my counties and people I represent, commissioners, says you need to have the plan so when the money comes out, we got this plan, this is what it's going to cost. Instead of saying, oh, wait, and I think they're doing a good job here in Dent County of staying on top of that. And prior to this information, they were even on top of that to get broadband and internet service.
When you want to talk about economic development, industry isn't going to locate somewhere. I mean, internet service is like going back years ago to highways. You're only going to have a large industry locate where there were no highways to get, and that's the way it is with internet now. They're going to locate. If they're going to locate or relocate, there's got to be good infrastructure, and that infrastructure includes high speed, and we're talking about high speed broadband internet service. And when you're talking about industry, we think of big buildings full of people, but anymore that definition even has changed a lot. Industry can be actually a person sitting at home doing their work from right there for their company. It's a different dynamic altogether than what it was 15, 20 years ago. Now, yeah, if we're going to have a business locate and employ several people and, on a thing, we want that, and you got to have the infrastructure to support it. That's why the Sally Burbridge has been working on getting this site, a certified site, ready out here in the industrial park for an industry. You've got, it's one of the things you got to have good electric service. You got to have roads, highways, and you got to have communication. Communication is
it's kind of like when there's a discussion up there about broadband and how essential it is. Back when electric departments came in,
That's right.
Where the money's at, the internet's already been. I mean, so they don't. The underserved areas is where it costs. You have to have 7 hookups per mile to even make it count, and you get in these rural areas where there's 1 hookup every mile and a half. They're not making no money, so why would they invest in that? So you get back in electric when they did that way back when.
Absolutely.
We had to step up as government to say, hey, we're going to have to do something to improve that. That was the talk of saying, I think we got to that point is the capitalistic people have got all the places. So when do we pick up for the people that don't have that ability and help them do that?
Right. The high profit areas.
They're already taken.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
so now it's how do we get it out here to us?
But it is a profit thing, Businesses
Sure.
don't want to come in if they're not going to profit. I mean, that makes sense.
But we've heard some proposals at a discussion on this down at Echo Bluff, but it was a regional thing that Sally Burbridge kind of helped set up and organize with different internet suppliers from the West Plains area and all around, kind of talking about what they do and how they did. And it's interesting to see how different ones have approached it. Some of them approached it first using wireless technology to get it out there and get people signed up and on, and then as they can, they start putting fiber optic cable in the ground, because everybody kind of seems to agree that the fiber optic cable in the ground is the best way, because you don't have windstorms take it out and different things. But there is the issue of right-of-ways, how and where, and there's some things maybe the legislature can do to help with that, whether they can use some existing right-of-ways, lease right-of-way from co-ops, electric co-ops and so on, to help with that thing. So I know there's a lot of those things being looked at as well on how to facilitate this whole deal. And for nothing else, even the issue of getting better mapping, as we've had Sally on here talk about, better mapping to even identify where the unserved and underserved areas are. Big issues.
So yeah, last time, which was the first meeting of this year, Sally asked people to do speed tests again, and to keep doing speed tests, because it can change. I mean, every now and then they can actually find a little bit better internet source, or a new tower goes up, or whatever, and we have a new one out here off of 32. How much did that change? I mean, if you're out that way, are you affected by that now? Maybe you went from one upload speed to a new upload speed. And that's what she's asking people to constantly do, because new towers are going up all the time. One of the biggest issues for the internet service in this area, in Dent County and also in Crawford County, as well as down south in Shannon County, is the National Forest. It is against the law to put a tower. It is against the law to run electric, unless you got a special thing like you had to do, like Inter County had to get back years ago. They had to allow them to go through there. That's not allowed. When you talk to the forest rangers, we were looking at a radio tower putting up there. 7 to 10 years to get permission. 7 to 10 years because of the red tape. And he goes, don't even try it.
That brings up a whole other deal about all these public lands.
By the time you get to your one representative who's helping you, or your one senator, they may be out of office before it ever gets to the location you need to get to, and then there's nobody backing you. And it is, and that was a harsh realization that you got all that land out there, you can't do anything with it. So it's all protected. And so, these are going to be some issues that are the state can't fix that.
Yeah, there's some issues that I've seen with this within this district, and we can lead right into one of the bills that I filed, and it's directly reflected to this district. It's not against any state or agency or nothing like that. It's economic development as far as federal and state-owned land in the state. And I've had some people not like it, but they don't I don't think they understand where it's coming from. Basically, it's a bill that says that if the state, federal government own more than 20% of the acreage in that particular county, before they can acquire any other acreage, they would have to go to the local county commissioners and say, hey, we would like to purchase or acquire this piece of property. And that's only after the 20%, right? And they would have to work with the county commission to say, hey, we would like to do this, but is it beneficial to the county? You know, at what point is the government-owned property non-beneficial economically to the area? Because if you look at the 8 counties that this only affects really right now around 8 counties in the state, but them 8 counties are some of the poorest counties in the state. You look at Shannon and Oregon are the 2 poorest counties in the state. They argue over that. I wish I wouldn't. And my goal when I told them is you guys will not be the 2 poorest counties in the state by the time I'm done, right? And now they're
not yours.
They're jerking me out. I mean, so I'm still going to work on that. But Shannon County has about 42% of their land owned by the federal government and state, and Oregon's 24. I mean, so is that the sole reason? No. But is it a contributing reason? I could probably say yes, because if I owned a 500-acre farm down there in the Park Service, I would have cattle on it. I would contribute with the tax base and all that, right? And look, let's do what you just said. We can't even run power lines or towers on that piece of property. So how do we increase the economic development when I own a house over here and I can't get internet service because they won't let us put a tower on it? So them are the things we're fighting with this bill. But this bill, I want to make sure that people know it doesn't stop them from purchasing. They just have to work with the county commission. And my contention is, who knows better than the county of what the needs are? And I can tell you right now, sometimes we don't know what's best, and we shouldn't necessarily pass what's best. The federal government tells us what's best, right? We don't like that. So we should let the county commission say, yes, this is good. You know, I was looking at our PILT payments. I mean, them are so...
It's payment in lieu of taxes.
Yeah, if you know what that... And that's from state government, federal and state government-owned land. They get payment in lieu of taxes, and it's so antiquated. I saw one acre... From one department, they paid $34 in PILT payments, but then there's 85 acres they paid $94 on. And I asked them why the difference was. It's not fair. I'm just saying, if they want to own land, they don't take give us the property tax or the money that I would pay if I own that land, and just be fair about it. But the way the Constitution's written and whatnot, the on some of the issues that they get alleviated. Wow. And I'm just going to throw this out there. I'm looking, and I asked the question yesterday on our PILT payments for Dent County, the 13,000 acres of Indian Trails is not on there's no PILT payment on that.
Not a penny.
Nothing.
Not a
no
penny.
penny. And I'm looking into that. I called Crawford County to see if Crawford County had it on their PILT payment, and they're supposed to get back to me, but
Well, they don't.
I was told that due to some thing that passed years ago, they were exempt from paying property tax on that. I'm still looking. I don't want to.
I think all property they own before a certain date, they don't have.
And
to
how
pay,
is that
as I
fair
understand it.
to the county people that in R4 that live in there?
No, it's
I mean,
not.
so why not just pay what you're supposed to pay? You know, they're.
But for an example, how skewed it is out there where I live, adjoining me, there's 2,500 acres, White River Trace Wildlife Area. That original piece that they bought first was 1,164 acres, I think it was. It was a cattle farm. A man and his family lived there. He had a nice house, barns, cattle, machinery, operated a cattle ranch. He paid considerable county taxes, went into the coffers. It was improved. I mean, there was great hay fields. It was good pasture, so on. It was also there's actually they ended up with 2,500 acres. So they bought that farm, and then another farm, and then another farm, and then another farm. And I think he ended up 4 different farms they ended up adding together to do this. Homes and houses on every one of those farms that people lived in, and operations. So what they're paying now, there's no homes on those, none. All of them been raised, virtually no barns, nothing. Of course, the cattle are gone, no equipment, no nothing. What they pay now in PILT on that 2,500 acres compared to what it was or what it would be if it was still in private hands, it's no comparison. I don't have the figure for you, but it's no. And they say, well, yeah, but we generate income from hunters. Oh, baloney! There is no way.
You know, that's a contention we have, and I'm not opposed to them having, because I think that it's beneficial to our community to have them things. But at what point does their needs trump the citizens' needs? You know, and getting right back to the PILT payments. I looked yesterday in Dayton County. There's 17,700 acres of conservation land. Okay, and I'm not picking on conservation. I mean, they do a good job conserving our wildlife and
managing
and you know,
Agreed.
the best that you can. But they pay $2,000 or $3,800 total for 17,000 acres, and I pay $3,000 for my 25. But I got a house on it and a barn, and so it just isn't. At what time is it the state is taken away from our economic growth by possessing so much land? That's where this 20% goes to. It doesn't keep them from doing it. It just says work with the county, and if you're going to purchase that 1,000 acres, you're going to continue to pay this property tax and making a contractual agreement with them so it doesn't affect the citizens of the county.
Well, Ron, one of the things that you might want to look at too is, if I'm not mistaken, payments don't change much. That these lands are not under reassessment. They do not get reevaluated.
Once the year
And
they purchase it,
yeah, it's the year they purchase it. That's what they pay.
At unimproved,
You know,
at
so,
unimproved land.
But those,
value.
you know, the value of those lands. If the government would go to sell it, the value of that land would be a lot higher. And so, why are they not getting reassessed, and why are they not paying additional PILT payments for the reassessment of that land?
I'm
There's
learning.
another bill
I'm
for you.
learning on that stuff. You know,
And while they own these lands, they cut timber, take timber
Oh,
off.
yeah, they
What do we
make
get
money.
out of that? Zippo.
See,
I could. I'm working with the conservation right now on that issue.
Yeah.
You know, that's a bill I had that I brought forth last year, and it went through committee as a committee bill, and it passed through the committee. It just never made it to the House. It's sitting on my desk. Basically, what that bill is, and I have not filed it yet because I'm trying to figure out if it's. They say it's unconstitutional, but right now, MDC. The Forest Service, when they log a property out here in the forest, they send the county a percentage of that money for the roads and bridges and schools. Is that not correct?
Well, they were supposed to, I
don't know, but that's what my assumption was.
Well,
that's,
yeah, they're
that's
supposed
the
to.
ideal thing, right?
Suppose over the year, the agreement was, when minerals, all this stuff, anything like that was harvested off of it, then we're supposed to get a part. And I'm not sure how this goes into play, but years ago, because of stuff that happened back in the far west, the northwest with spotted owl, and they shut down the logging, and they just decimated those communities back there that were timber communities. I mean, they just shut it down. Then Congress came up with what they called the a Secure Rural Schools Act fund, because these monies come to the counties, some to the road and bridge, but most of it went then to the schools that had, because there were still people scattered around through them lands, and they had kids in school, and that was a lot of the funding for them was from the logging industry and all of that. Well, they shut it down, so Congress came up with a deal called Secure Rural Schools Act. So in place of the monies we normally were getting from forest, they come up with some type of a formula. Jason could have maybe explained that better for you than I can, maybe. But at any rate, they came up with the deal there where, well, in replace of that, or at least part of it, they would do this direct funding through Secure Rural Schools Act. Now, it's always in danger every year of Congress trying to shut it off, but technically, yeah, they were supposed to return to us a portion of all proceeds mining, and I think it still is a part of it. How it all comes into play, but the point is, they own those lands, they're selling that property, or that stuff, material, whether it's through mining or logging or whatever, and we are supposed to get a portion of it either directly or at least through the Secure Rural Schools Act funding, part of the thing. MDC, on the other hand, they just do it, and
Well, I can give you
and
numbers
reap
if
the
you want.
Yeah, no, I mean I know it's huge.
Well,
It's
I
large.
think people would want to know. And matter of fact, I had a meeting with them yesterday, and they give me last year they made $2.6 million off timber sales throughout the state. And I apologize, I had that information on my desk for our county. I'll be able to tell you exactly how much they profited from timber sales. None of that went to our schools. None of that went to the road. Now, they say they give money other ways, which
We
you
do.
would know.
We get somewhere around $15,000 to $20,000 a year from
gravel.
MDC for rock to put on roads
So
around their
there's
areas.
other money out there.
Nothing to do with the timber
No,
say.
it doesn't.
No.
So, but my contention is I know they logged in trails several years back. R4 could have. This bill that I have on my desk that I'm still working on is it would take 75% of that money and it would go to the local school district in which the resource was logged. I mean, so if it was R3 out there at one of the Right River Trace they logged or whatever, 75% of whatever logging they get would go back to the schools, and they would keep 25% to maintain the logging industry and whatnot. The reason I haven't filed that yet, I'm trying to work with the logging industry because do we want to invest it in our schools or back into the forestry industry? I'm just trying to see what would be best for our
Or a hybrid somewhere.
yeah,
in there.
something like so. I'm trying to work with them on both ways to say what and work with MDC to see if they're willing to help me. This year, I found out projected they're going to get $6 million, rough estimated $6 million to put into their coffers from timber sales, and that goes right into a fund that's not regulated, not the tax base that we voted into. And I contend, and I've told them straight up that I feel when we voted the tax base in, that's what you was supposed to operate on. This money that you're making off natural resources, I feel that is the county's money. It's in rural areas where you take in the property and don't pay the property tax in some ways, right?
Right.
So that should be invested back into into our district, and I can fight that all day long, and I will. So
At least some percentage of it should.
well, yeah, I mean, and they're willing nothing. I mean, that's what bothers me is work with me on this. Do you think that's will we give schools money and we don't have to? It's not constitutional. We give them information and stuff for their science classes. We'll tell the people you don't give them
You're
money
not
for
giving
that.
them $6.2 million.
Well, and that was.
I mean, that's what.
And the
to be
forestry
honest.
industry doesn't want to have any conflict with them because they're benefiting the more they,
sure.
and it's million acres. They're million board feet. They're supposed to look at 15 million board feet this year, and which is good for our logging industry and this industry. The logging industry is a vital industry in this area. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about that. So why not
Absolutely.
invest in that to help that out even more?
Sure.
Is my contention, or the schools.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. You got $6.2 million. There should be some distribution of that toward where that area that should benefit something out of that timber
Well,
being
they'll
removed.
tell you they're putting money into schools, but
I
they're
know.
already doing that, and constitutionally they're required to do that by that. And don't get me
they're, like I
wrong,
said,
they
yeah.
do a good job. I'm not bashing on them, and I think we have a good relationship with their liaison over there, knowing that I'm not bashing on them. I'm fighting for my people in my district. I just feel you're taking, and when state agencies start taking and not looking at what's benefit for the community instead of what's benefiting for them, because if you look at the Constitution that passed years ago, they showed me they can purchase land what's best for the Constitution, for the Conservation
That's
Department.
You're right. You can.
So does that trump the rights of the economic development of the people in the district? At what point does their rights, a state agency's rights, trump our people's rights? That's where I'm at.
Well, and I agree with you, and that's what I'm saying though. What's the value of educating those kids when they can't develop? They can't get any money off that land. They can't do anything, and they're taking the money off the land. Some of that money needs to go back into that school district, whether it be on a 5 or 10 year. Maybe it needs to be distributed over 5 or 10 years.
Well, I just
Who
even,
cares?
even a
But
percentage,
give
even
them
$6
something.
million at 25%, that's $1.5 million would go back into the school districts or the logging industry, and they still get $4.5 million.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm struggling with is let's work with me to see
There's
where
gotta
we
be
can get
something.
ahead.
I mean,
can be
I
done.
get you.
So
But that land, otherwise that land generates no money for that school district. And that's what I'm saying.
And that's where I got to put, being a policeman for 28 years, you put your case together and you go testify, and I'll see where it goes from here. I mean, hopefully they'll believe me and we'll go forward with it, So
I wanted to ask you, being from a rural area, when you present a bill, of course, you have to fight the people in the cities who have no idea what you're talking about. They are totally clueless. And how hard is it for you to get them interested in a bill that they really may have no interest in whatsoever?
Education, right?
Yeah.
well, Well, yeah. Well, you know, they can kind of convince me as far as education the issues they're having.
I understand
a lot
that.
easier than
Right.
I.
And you'll hear about them on the news all the time.
Because there's money behind that, for one.
Sure.
The reason you're hearing about all this stuff about the schools is because there's money behind that somewhere. You know, our rural schools are doing an awesome job as far as, to me, and they bash on public school education. It's like 19% of the people can't read and write. And I'm thinking, but they're taking them out of the cities to where there's no guidance or discipline. I think there's no discipline really. So they don't discipline nobody because they don't want to be considered racist or bigots or whatnot like that, right? So the problems are in your inner cities with schools. But we get on school issues. I can go up and say, how many of us in this house are public school graduates? You can't say we're not successful being a public school graduate. I mean, I would say 85% of the people in the house out of the 160 went to public school.
Sure.
But the money keeps pushing, and they have good points. But you know, when it comes to education, they see. I wouldn't send my kids to some of them schools. I would move. I mean, I've talked to other reps because.
Or use a charter school like they're pushing more and more.
Then
now.
a reason for that is because if your kid was in there in an unruly classroom, and a rep showed me a picture yesterday, no, 2 days ago, about his son is 16 and he went into a classroom. It's the history class. They have every flag hanging in this classroom, LGBTQ, Cuban flag, but they do not have the American flag in that classroom. I mean, so I mean. It's so biased and pushing that, and this is why critical race theory is pushed. Or it's not in our rural schools because we do pretty good about following up on that. So the news is all about these inner cities, and that's where the money's at. They're pushing that. So the public school does a good job saying no, 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 but there's many times we go to them and say, what can we do to fight this thing, not just say no, no, no. It's just no, no, no has never happened. But when you come to something, education's hard because they have their school districts are whole different than ours.
Oh,
so
sure.
Trying
Absolutely.
to convince them, but how do we change it up there without affecting our public schools is where I'm at.
You know, but when you're talking about funding public schools down here because of land that generates no income, that should be a no-brainer.
Well, it is. I can
You know.
I can convince them on that. And where do I keep them from taking money? What worries me is if we do get more charter, is that taking money away from our public schools? That's what I've asked them, because that's what the public school people tell me. Every time we open a new charter, it takes money because there's just a limited pot,
Right.
piece of the pie. So if we get another school, is that taken away?
Yeah.
But they got some good points as far as people not graduating, and charters can go under. You know, and they close them. Public schools, we don't really close very many public schools. We start pumping more money and whatnot into them. So that's their sales pitch up there.
But if you explain it, a charter school, students can go to a charter school from anywhere, and there is state funding to that charter school.
That's right. So
You know, but people, you know, with state funding comes to your public schools, but that was always the big gripe about the charter school. More like a private school, but they're getting some state funding.
I think that, and just looking at being open-minded, and people may say this could affect if you had open enrollment. In that we all worry about open enrollment down here. Oh, what the best sports guy's going to go up here, or whatnot. You know, along that could actually happen. I don't think it would affect the funding a whole lot because in rural areas, who's going to be able to drive their kid to Rolla every day and pick them up? It might be kind of difficult.
Be surprised. They'll find a way to get them in
Well,
that district.
they might, but then you know
Some
you
instances,
might,
yeah.
you might, but it's like up there it would close this charter thing because then people could actually go to them schools without opening a charter.
Well, they could, but I mean, when you look at a private school, they do the same thing. They go recruit, but
Yeah.
they are funded by more private institutions, you know, that were able to do that. So they're already kind of doing that, and every private school does get some funding from the
Yeah,
state.
they do, and it's you get into that education thing they have a whole different look at it than we do. So you just got to say, I just don't want them to take
Especially
our
in
money.
the urban areas, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
But
when it comes to other issues, I think it's pretty easy, like this 20% thing. I went to several people, and the timber sales bill, they are all, that doesn't make that, they're fair. There's fair people.
Mm-hmm.
This only affects 8 counties, this 20%. That's never going to affect your county. You got,
But it affects them immensely.
well, no, I'm talking about the 20%.
Yeah. Yeah,
the
for those 8 counties.
It says
Oh, yeah,
this
yeah,
affects these 8
absolutely.
counties, and this 2 of my counties are in it, and one of my counties is just this close to getting the 20%. I says, and when they're poor counties, and they if you just go to them prior to, and that's
Just
it's
talk
not
to
just
them,
getting
yeah.
up there talking.
When I said education a little bit ago, I really wasn't intending for us to get off on the whole
Well, but
education
that is
skills
one of the
deal.
hot topics.
But I know it is.
But
But what I
educating these people about our
that's
area.
where I was going, that a large part of your job is try to get with these people who really don't understand kind of maybe what the issue is, but being able to build some relationship at least to say, look, here is why this is an issue, and if it's an issue for us, why it's important, and build those relationships. And of course, they're going to probably do the same thing on some issues and more important to them up there. But just like on the feral hog deal, okay, one of my challenges I found as a small third-class county commissioner working on with the state association, our needs and the things, just like this public lands thing, that doesn't bother those guys in North Missouri any at all. But I did have the conservation department come in and do a program with our state board of commissioners to talk about the feral hog problem, why it's grown and how and so on. And I'm going to tell you, a bunch of those commissioners always said they had no idea. And I'm going to tell you, man, they are 100% on board and supportive, whatever it takes to kill and eradicate them feral hogs, because they can see that somehow them things are going to swim across or get on a truck and come across the river, and they'll have them. And so I mean, so it's an education thing, is a little bit when in our jobs, your
And building
job,
a
my
rapport
job.
and getting credibility.
That's right.
I mean, so that's the
Relationship
biggest thing
building.
I've worked on.
Yep.
You know, in the forestry industry, I'll pimp this one thing. I got a for a logging industry that's going to help our logging industry. Being a trooper for 28 years, there's some issues there that I felt was difficult for troopers to enforce or police to enforce some things on logging, and it was difficult for the logging industry to understand it. So there's some clarification that, and I worked with the logging industry, the commercial motor vehicle departments, to say, hey, how can we fix this without alleviating any safety, and got them involved and educated. Last year, that same bill got to the governor's desk, but somebody added a emissions thing on it, and it got vetoed. So we're looking forward to the helping that logging industry. Like I said, it's a $10 billion business in the state. So I mean, them are the kind of things that I want. And I think if you got good people, know that you're invested and you're not just coming up there to throw something out to them. I picked things that this 20% thing, I'm all in. The logging thing, I'm all in.
Yeah.
There's other issues that I'm all in on, and I'm not. It's constituent based, not, hey, would you do this for me? This is what I need in St. Louis or Kansas City.
You know, and we often talked about, we've talked about it before, wouldn't it be nice if all the legislators had to go and visit or go into another county for 3 or 4 days to find out just what it's like to be in southeast Missouri or northwest Missouri, who are in St. Louis or Kansas City or Columbia, where, I mean, everybody's needs are a little bit different. So that's why you have 113 different counties in the state of Missouri. But until they see and feel and touch and understand it, you know, a lot of our people, you go to a Cardinal game or something, you go to St. Louis, you go through 3 or 4 different counties, you see what's up there, how many of those people are actually coming down here? So, you know, that turnaround it's not a fair assessment when they sit there and they vote on something and maybe you bring up that they have no idea about Oregon County. Where the heck's Oregon County? Well, you got to go way to the south near Arkansas. Why would I want to go near Arkansas? You know, well, you need to go see what's there. You know, and that's what I thought. It'd be great to have every legislator take a road trip through every county of the state.
They do. I'll throw this out there. When you get elected, they do a freshman tour.
I know.
And they do go all over not every county, but they try to hit, you know, north Missouri, east and west, south Missouri, and come down and do a tour just to show some of the legislation. And some of them are like, I didn't even know this ever existed. They take them to a.
But I mean, stay there for a few days.
Yeah.
So you can't, in a tour, you're only going to be there a few hours.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, and they're not going to know. And if you would actually take, like, say, 10 legislators and say, I want to show you the timber industry. I want to take you to a couple of loggers. Let them talk to you. Take them down to.
That's a good idea.
You know, take them down to the mines. Here's our miners. Here's a recycling plant. Do you even know we have a recycling plant in the state of Missouri? The largest one in the United States? It's sitting here in Boss. One of the smallest towns, or / Boss. You know, not really in Boss, but close. Boss.
You know, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, just the timing to do it and the initiative and
I know. Timing, the time to be able to do that is incredible. But it would help so many things with the legislators, I think, if they would understand. Yeah, you know the issues in St. But like I say, we see them on the news every single day. If you see it in Springfield, you see it in St. Louis, you'll see it in Kansas City. There's a lot of problems. But there's a lot of problems in our area, too. But this don't get the attention. I'm done.
But well,
Nope, it makes sense. It does.
it makes me think though, because that takes me down another deal, and I think right now we have term limits up there. 8 years, you're out, automatic. Doesn't matter how good a job you're doing, whatever, whether people want you out or not, you're out.
Or you can go be a senator.
Or you can then you could run then for a Senate, and but at any rate, there is some question, and I know some concern about that. And I've heard a lot of different ones, and I've heard even lobbyists say that they'll say term limits. What term limits does is actually increase the effect and control that lobbyists have to some degree,
They have a little
because
more,
because they know they've been there. They're not term limited. They're there, and they know how it works, and they know how the deal. It takes a while for, just like you were talking about, part of the things you're doing is trying to build relationships with the other legislators and so on. Some of them, though, that you build a good relationship, they're term limited out, just like coming this year. Chipman's term limited out.
Yeah.
It's a constant revolving door of new people, new faces, and people that were there that did finally have a grasp and understanding in some of these different places, but they're gone. And I know some very good legislators in some other counties that their county people, they were great for their county, and then they finally knew, and they had great respect and ability, but boom, they were gone. And so I think the question has to be raised, does term limits really serve us? I know Bruce Sassman from up at Vienna has introduced legislation to maybe address that somewhat. To me, as citizens, we have the power of term limits every time we go to vote, and those names are on that ballot. It's
That's true. And what surprised me, on the last ballot, last time we voted, we had term limits for the lieutenant governor and the auditor, and they didn't vote them term limits in. And I don't know why.
I think people are finding out term limits are not.
Well, I think they get it confused, and I'm not. They get confused because the federal government does not have term limits. You're looking at Nancy Pelosi and all them that have been up there for years and years and years, and they're tired of listening to them, and they get so much power that it's almost impossible to do anything with, and they don't want that, and that's what they put that with our legislature.
Basically, I think sometimes people like the idea of term limits because they like to have somebody else's rep or senator gone.
Well, that could very well be.
I mean, it's
but there is truth. Like right now, the seniors that are here, they're pushing everything they got because they know this is the last chance they get. Right, so it's like, they're just doing everything they can. There's no other chance to get it passed. Right. And you're right, they'll be gone next year, and all their knowledge and whatnot's gone. I'm blessed. I'll be honest with you, being a trooper for 28 years. I went up there. I had just by that organization, they already held me to esteem, asked me to carry some bills that I was knowledgeable about, and was able to get them on the governor's desk. I had 2 pieces of legislation I actually signed, as a freshman, not in my name, but they were my language to help certain different issues.
Putting those bills together.
So I mean that was and I don't think that could have happened if I didn't have the respect and from the other people and the people that were up there. So
it'll be interesting to see what Sassman's bill, how that goes.
There's a lot of legislators up there. Here's the deal: it's just like the people voted that in. Do we send that back to them? Does it pass as a bill and we trump what the people voted in? I don't. I think I would like to be able to explain to the people that this is what you're getting. If you want to keep it that way, that's fine, and limit your.
I think it would be
interesting.
interesting.
And the rural areas are the ones that probably get hurt the most because there's not a whole lot of money behind it. They focus on the district that's 5 square miles, not 2,600 square miles, because the votes are there. And I've noticed the more urban you get, the more political stuff is involved.
It would be interesting if it was, if that was a joint resolution and it was put back on the ballot to to change that.
I mean, 12 years, is 12 years enough? And then they're trying to figure out what is the longest. They said 16 at the most. I've heard one bill that says 16, but that's period. 16 in the Senate or 16 in the House. That's it. You can't do 16 in the Senate and then 16 in the House.
Or you could
because that's
still
8 and 8, right?
Yeah.
So you would have to pick, which I wouldn't mind doing that, because what happens, what I see now is the reps that are leaving, they're running for Senate. So a lot of the stuff they're putting forward is for votes for their Senate campaign, and they're more focused on their Senate campaign than the constituent base. If they knew they could only do 8 to 16 in the House, they wouldn't be focused on re-electing to go to the Senate.
But I know of some cases where a couple of reps were term limited out, and they were excellent reps for rural Missouri, but they were close enough together. They both couldn't run and win a Senate seat. There was only going to be one senator, so one of them was out and done representing the people. And it just was a real shame for rural Missouri for some of those people to be outgone. So, I think I would.
I think it's going
I'd
to be
love
looked
to
at,
see
and I
that
think it's
people
got a good
get a
chance in the
chance.
future if we educate the people and let them know why, to do that. So we'll see how that goes. So.
Any other major pieces you see coming up that? It's an election year, so who knows? It's
I
a
want to
crazy
say
year.
that in the state of the state, the governor did say he would like to see the teacher salary to $38,000. I mean, that's is the state going to contribute to that? I have no idea.
No.
But how do we get to $38,000 on general teacher salary? There's a
lot of districts could never afford that.
They may have to. They may have to raise the formula. So
Well, the formula is a fiasco, and
Yeah, I know.
you ask for how they figure the formula, and I've done that in a meeting, and they won't give it to you. I mean, I have one district, and I'll throw this out there, that just voted to give a 4.25% property tax for the district to keep their school open. Well, the formula, I found out, and I passed this on to the superintendent, anything over 3.47 that you vote above, the state takes some of the contributing factors away from you.
Right.
So that
They
then people
penalize you.
voted in thinking they're going to keep
4.2.
to improve. Well, what they don't know, if that improves at $100,000, well, the state's going to take 70, and you're only going to get 30,000 improvement. So I told them they need to look into that tax base and decide how much it is, or we need to work on. That's not fair. If citizens want to vote that in to improve, then it should improve to keep them going, not punish them for.
why should the state benefit from it? Yeah.
Well, anything that I do to put money into the school, I have to find out if the formula is going to affect that. Just like the timber sales bill, that I looked into that. I didn't want to take money away from the conservation and it end up in general revenue. So I found out that it does not. If that money would come to R4, say, it would not take away the state's contributing portion. But some monies that I get for them schools because of the formula would affect how much they get from the state. So I may be getting them $100,000, but really they're getting 50, and the state's getting the 50.
Right.
So that's why it's so confusing. I think they do that.
Yeah, but there are a few things that do not go through the formula, like encumbrances. If somebody wants to donate to that school $1 million, that never goes through the formula. It's the school's money.
Yes.
Because somebody donates it. Well, if the conservation department would donate that money to the school, I mean, I know you said it would already pass, but if it didn't, and it would be thrown into the formula, just say, no, that's encumbered to that school from the land. That's it. It can only be used at that school for certain purposes, and that's it.
And that's
a way around it.
That's the way I found out that I didn't want to focus on that if it just didn't. It did that. I don't want to. It wasn't a punishment type thing.
No,
it was
no.
to try to get my schools more money.
But if they want to build a new building, they got the money. It's right there. So it can be done there.
It's a learning experience. After being there for just 6 months last year, 5 months, I've learned a lot. Like I said, I've done probably not more, but I've learned what I've taken from last year to this first 2 weeks in session. I'm by far way ahead from what I was last year.
And Ron, last year was a tough year because of COVID. You couldn't make some of the relationships that you wanted to because they weren't allowing you guys to be near each other.
Yeah, it was different. I mean, it was different. And the relationships are probably one of the biggest things you need to go up there, because you go up and say, hey, can you support this bill or not? And just talking to them other guys, you get ideas that say, hey, this might, I need to change that, and you'll support it if I do this, and, work around that. Go to the Senate side. Every bill I have so far, I've went over to the Senate side and said, hey, are you going to do the same thing? I'd like to use your language. And if their Senate bill passes, right, my name will never be on it.
Right.
But, I don't know if I said this last time I talked to Frank Barnett, he was our state rep for years and a senator at sometimes. He said if you don't mind to get credit for things, you can get a lot of stuff done. So your idea is there. If you let somebody else carry it,
That's good enough.
it'll get done. And some people up there have an ego and will not do that.
That's right. They want their name on that bill.
But I can just tell you that my language, that's my language. I'm happy with that. Just so you know, I'm not just sitting up there taking your money.
But you've got legislators up there, and I know you've mentioned there's some legislators up there who have previously been county government,
Yes.
county commissioners, county clerks, Peggy McGall.
Yep.
Anyway,
Jamie.
Yep,
Berger.
and stuff. And so they're resources you can, who I'm sure can tell you some things they like or don't like because of its effect on them.
It's amazing the experience and knowledge that we got voted in. We got bankers, we got policemen, we got commissioners, we've got just a vast array of people. And when a school bill comes up, I go talk to the superintendents that's been a superintendent. I talk to people who's worked in charter schools and find it out. When there's a police bill comes up, I don't know how many people last year come in when this police reform bill come up to ask me what you thought, and I told them these are the good things about this. These are things that worry me. So it's that respect and knowledge that we use, and a lot of them bounce stuff off each other. So it's just hard to know what the school districts need because the lobbyists over here, these people are telling you this, and these people are telling you this. You take that knowledge of somebody who's actually worked in that field. That this is not a good bill for public school, and he was a public school teacher, right? So, and then this one is. So I mean, that is true. The commissioners and I rely a lot on Darrel. I'm not pimping Darrel by any means. He's very knowledgeable on this thing, and I call him about how it's going to affect things. I mean, we may agree or disagree. We agree more than we don't agree.
We generally agree. Once in a while, we maybe disagree.
but him knowing the county and the budget and the things that go there is just a vast knowledge for me to see. Because usually, if it affects Dent County, Crawford, or the rest of them have the same similar needs. So just having that knowledge in the county on them things is beneficial to me as a state rep.
Right, and not only are you getting the Denton County side of it with Darrel and all his communications with CCAM and MAC and has so many different other inputs, he may be telling you, okay, Texas County, Oregon County, Shannon County, they're all experiencing the same thing. And when he tells you that, you're not just getting one county's version, you're getting 3 or 4 or 5.
And he always invites me to like their meetings, so I stay abreast and meet them people so they can give me their 2 cents or 3 cents or
those are always lively. Those regional meetings are always lively.
Just the ones that I go to if I don't want to go back to.
Well, Ryan, we really appreciate it. We're a little short on time here, already 9:45, so really appreciate you coming by and spending some time with us. I love your input because you give us kind of the first-hand view of what's going on down there in Jeff City.
Well, I just want to tell you exactly how it is, and I learned a lot, and if you ever think it is what it is, it probably isn't what you think it is. But we do see the federal stuff, and it's Jeff City isn't as bad as that. We see this national news, and it's always so bashing and terrible and terrible and terrible. We got 2 sides up there on the aisle. They're good people. I mean, they just have different mindset and different needs sometimes than we have in the rural area. And get back to what you said, they understand what our needs are. And I understand their needs now, and we can work together. But on our values of certain, gun rights, abortion, and things like that, them are the things that I really truly believe they don't necessarily believe the national as much as we think they do. I mean, it's so politicized up there about them issues, and they stand for them. But they're a lot more sensible in Missouri, even though they're on the other side of the aisle. So. But if you treat them right, they treat us right. I disagree, they disagree, and we can next time down the road we can agree on things. Yeah. It's nice to work with them last year on police reform because they come to a mindset of bashing the police. Well, and I come in and say, well, and work with them, and they understand, just like you said, they can understand where I'm coming from. You're bashing on us, or you're trying to punish the police. Let's work on here. This is good reform, but let's take this out so it's not bashing and it's actually changing something instead of getting your political bash on the police.
Right. And hopefully improving.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
that's
the
the
whole
ultimate
idea.
goal is to improve
Right.
and not. So yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate coming, and like I said, anytime anybody wants to get a hold of me, they can call my office if they have questions. If you disagree with me, call me. I mean, I always like to have the other side. I may be looking at a different. And one thing is, I do notice is that there's a few people on the floor that when they stand up and start talking on a bill, and I say I was going to vote no on it, and they're testifying in favor of it. I have to back up and say, hold on, why is this gentleman actually, or representative, supporting this, and he's kind of a rule guy? I have to step back and go talk to him and find that out of why. And I tell them, I says, that's in the future to come, that's what I want to do. I don't want anybody to say, hey, why is Representative Copeland supporting this and I'm not? That's kind of a respect thing. It's like I want to look at how I'm looking at it.
Sure.
And there's very few of them that can stand up that I'll do that with, because some of them just throw stuff on the wall, But some of them, I want to have that reputation to say,
Yeah.
why is he doing that?
Or what does he know that I don't know?
Yes. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Well, and you never know in that conversation. There may be a piece of that gives you a better understanding, and there may be a piece of it somewhere along the line that you two can maybe come together. At least if you can agreeably agree to disagree, why?
Yeah,
That's a win for both.
That's all
Appreciate
about
it.
Ron, thank you much. Appreciate
Thanks.
it. You have a great rest of the day. Just try and stay warm out
I've
there.
got several things to do. I get to give a resolution to a 100-year-old lady today. I'm turning 100 today in Salem, and she still drives and lives on her own.
Pretty
and then
neat.
tomorrow I get to give a resolution to a lady that turned 100 down in Thomasville, in
Wow.
Alton, and an Eagle Scout guy that's Eagle Scout. They do, to be an Eagle Scout, you have to do immense amount of stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm still busy. It's Friday and Saturday, but I'm still
That's
busy.
all right. Well, you're always busy. You're always on call, right?
You know-
My phone, I can't go to my shop without getting 2 or 3 phone calls, but that's what I knew that beforehand. And being a trooper, before, when I got calls, you just take care of it. And when somebody calls, I try to call them back as soon as I can, because get rid of the issue instead of them sitting there worrying about it. And that's how do I represent if I don't get the input.
Right, and if you don't, they just keep piling up.
And they get aggravated, and then they start writing nasty.
And your job as a rep is a little bit like the job of a commissioner. And I mean, some people have the idea that, well, you go into session in January and you get out in the middle of May,
You're done.
and then you're free the rest of the year. Well, it doesn't really quite work that way, does it?
No,
You've got
no,
meetings and different things going on all the time. You get caught. You're on the job on Friday and on Saturday and on Sunday. And you like
Always
people
something.
say, well, commissioners, well, you only have to work a couple of days a week, sometimes a half a day, something.
Yeah,
No,
9 to 12,
no.
what do you
You
got?
know
That's
what?
easy.
I was on the phone for an hour and a half just yesterday, with our attorney on several different issues, clearing up how some different things work and how they don't, so on. You know, we were down at Montauk yesterday afternoon for a while to talk about that. There's just a multitude, and and I can tell anybody, probably some of the most important work that commissioners have to do is not sitting up there behind that desk at the courthaus. The important work we get done is
usually out in the field.
is outside of there.
You know, my wife asked me last week, are you tired of the 14-hour days yet? And I'm thinking, well, people don't realize you get there in the morning, have meetings,
Yep.
committee meetings, and you have a session, and you come back, more meetings, and then a concession again. Then in the evenings, there's meetings, speakers, special speakers that you want to listen to, and rural broadband meetings. I mean,
I've been up there for hearings that started, I think, at 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
Some of them started at 8 and 9 in the evening.
yeah, I had a committee meeting on crime prevention at 8 Tuesday morning. Then we meet at session, had a meeting at 9, and had a meeting and then after that I had another meeting with senators. So I mean, it's not like sometimes it's lull waiting to see what happens. Right now we haven't had a lot of things because of redistricting.
Right.
But next week we're going to start seeing bills move and something that we can send to the Senate and maybe get our see the things we need to take care of.
And
Mask
budget.
mandates and all them mandates are being discussed right now. They're going to start pushing them out.
Yep.
So,
The biggest thing you'll do this year will be your redistrict stuff and budget.
Yeah.
well, the money. So,
Yep.
money.
The money. It all comes
you.
back to
It's
the
all
money.
about the money. Thank you, Ron.
No, don't say
Appreciate
that.
it.
Thanks, Ron.
No, it really is. When you have to make conversation decisions, it's all about where's the money going to come from. I mean, it really is.
Yep.
You know, you only got so much money to budget.
and everybody wants some of
And
it.
everybody wants some of it.
There you go.
Where's the best allocation that money can go to get the best result?
And having relationships up there helps you get for your district makes a big difference. I learned that last year.
There you go.
So that's why term limits may be a problem because I had I knew people that got money. I'm thinking, why can't I get that from my district? Well, I just didn't know. Now I know a little bit more, and next year I'll know more, and so use that experience. Hopefully next year. Anyway.
We'll work on that Montauk thing, right?
Yes.
I've got meetings.
Yes.
I went to them on that because I know that it was in the budget several years
Well,
back.
it was, yeah.
And I'm not going to go why it didn't pass, but
Oh, it was in the budget.
We got
The
$4 billion,
expansion of
and
the
if-
camping was in there, and then they had the flood, and that kind of put it on hold.
but see that
Well,
But where'd the money go? No, it was
yeah,
there.
I don't know. There's some other things happened in the
Well,
There's a lot of
processes
things
of
that-
that. So
it-
anyway, whatever
But
it was,
they
it
used
was.
the excuse.
Yeah.
to put on hold because of the
Yeah.
flood.
it's a process,
Yep.
and like they said
Yep.
yesterday, it may be if we can get it on the Rex in there somewhere. It may be 4 years down the road or 5 years, but if we get it in there and I get it budgeted, and they said this billions of dollars coming, there's no time limit. Some of it doesn't have time limit, so I don't think we got to spend all $4 billion next year. Now I guarantee there's 160 reps that are going to want to spend it tomorrow.
But the old saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease,
Yeah,
right?
that is
so
true.
So you gotta
Keep
at least
yakking.
keep squeaking.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ron. May see you after a while.
All right, appreciate it, buddy.
Yep.
All right, Darrell. Well,
We don't have a lot of time.
No, we
I
don't
think
have-
we can sum it up pretty fast, though. We've been working on budget.
Budget.
I've got it right here, Stan, in
Yeah,
all its
it is.
beauty. Here, I'll hold it up here at the microphone so
Yeah, there
everybody
you
can
go.
see.
That budget's about 1.25 inches thick. So
Yep, 139 glorious pages. And there's, I think, let me see. I think there's 29 separate funds. There's 29 separate budgets in there, besides, with GR and all of them. But at any rate, we have come up with a tentative budget. I think you heard Ron say that they're looking at, and the governor calling for a 5.5%, basically COLA across the board increase on salaries at the state, and they're going to have to do it. We looked at that. The cost of living consumer price index is sitting up around 6-7% or more. We actually include in the budget allowance for a 4%, pretty much at least a 4% COLA across the board. With several, what we did, we actually done some revising of salary schedules or pay schedules for some of the employees and to reflect years of service and so on. So some are going to get more than a 4% to reflect a change in base and for years of service. So at any rate, it's a good budget and it works. Obviously, of course, though, the wild card for us trying to pull this budget together is this Department of Revenue withholding that is still sitting there right at $1 million. Right now, we don't know how much more it's going to be. The kind of the saving grace in that, though, is the ARPA funds have provisions that can be used for lost revenue calculation, and they've actually changed that and loosened that up somewhat to where you can just do a blanket use of it for general government services. So we're looking at that. We'll learn more about how that goes. Part of why I was on the phone yesterday for an hour and a half with the attorney about other things. So at any rate, the tentative budget is available at the county clerk's office. We will be having a budget hearing this coming Thursday at 10 a.m.
27th.
The 27th.
That's right. In case
And,
they don't know what date that is.
And it is, and I want to emphasize, it is a tentative budget. As I look through it, I found some things that I'm earmarking and flagging that we'll probably have to make some minor changes. Overall, the figures you see there are going to be just pretty much right on what we end up with, but there may be some minor changes in this budget as we go along at the hearing to change, but we will get the budget approved, and at that point then we will then be paying bills. One major thing I do want to point out that is included in here is we did include an $800,000 under capital expense in general revenue, and that basically is earmarked then for courthouse renovation and repairs. For the
needed.
exterior, we got to get to work on that. We've had architect look at it, draw up some recommendations, and do an overall overview of the old courthouse. And we now have Corky Stack of Stack and Associates at St. James. They've done a lot of work in this area, and they are then putting the plans together for us to get that out and get bids out, and get this thing going and done. It's a landmark. It's the most beautiful courthouse in the whole region here, and we're gonna want we just got to have a facelift and get it back.
We still have a
lot
couple
of
minutes,
things.
so I do want to say that the sales tax dollars came in, of course.
Yeah.
We've been trying to hold off on that because of what happened last year, but the increase in the amount of money that came in December made us having to think that actually state May last December may have actually started taking money out for money that came in January. Because
Right,
the dollar figures, Darrell, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 difference between December of
Our sales
22
our sales
to
tax for
December 21.
January. Yeah, our sales tax for January is 62% higher than what it was January last year. That was we looked at that last year and thought, goodness gracious, how in the world? Well, then the next month is when we got nothing.
Nothing.
Well, I really think, and the Department of Revenue hasn't admitted this, I really think they started the process with that January. That's the only thing that makes any sense. So for us to look at January this year compared to January last year, it isn't even a fair comparison. I went back and backed it up and looked at it for going back for a couple or 3 years and things. So it's very robust, very good sales tax revenue that came in here in January. Department of Revenue is not going to withhold anymore until we finally get together on what the accounting is, and they're going to give us what a final total bill is. But again,
That'll be in June though now, right?
well, the hearing is scheduled for June. Our attorney thinks that they're going to be coming to us much sooner than June, and,
With a settlement?
that will make the June hearing even go away. That they're going to come with, here's where we're at, and we can come to an agreement on how and when that we can be paid. So we can look at that and
Total figure term of how to pay it back over.
if it's over a period of
You know,
time,
the
or
next
if we just swallow it in
100
one.
years, like
if-
you said.
Yeah, yeah. I suggested a 100-year payback, but they said we'd probably better plan on compromising off that. But at any rate, when we may just swallow in one lump sum, if we can sure enough use the ARPA funds to replace that in the deal. So we'll
But
just
if
have to
it's a
see.
favorable extension that you
If
have
it
plenty
is.
of time, so you can get that money, maybe some of that money allocated to that courthouse, it needs some attention.
Well, we're going to do the courthouse.
No, I know, but
Yep,
I meant,
Yep.
but you never know what the architect's going to find. So,
Right.
when they're up there doing that, they say, "Hey, Darrell, we came across some things.
Well,
We.
The architect's estimate was 550, or somewhere around 550,000 to 730,000. But he pointed out about every project they've been bidding, the bids are coming in way, way over because even some builders are having such a hard time bidding anything because of the unknowns on cost of supplies.
absolutely.
So it's going to come in probably well over the 700,000. We've plugged 800,000 into this, but we're gonna get to work on it and get it back in shape. So
One last
that's
thing
the
is
biggest
that
thing.
the county road department is looking for new employees.
Yes, they
Full-time
are.
employees.
They are advertising that they are seeking applications for employment out at the Road and Bridge Department, and those applications can be picked up at the county clerk's office, and those applications are due back in February 4th. So anybody out there thinking it's a good crew, good place to work, it'd be a full-time job with I think with benefits, sick vacation, sick days, vacation, and retirement, and so forth. So encourage anyone to thinking about it. Get an application at the county clerk's office at the courthouse.
If you like outdoor
And,
work.
Yep, yep,
There you go.
pretty much. Yep.
And if you got something else you want to throw in there,
The only other thing I would just mention, a couple of things. We did approve and signed a letter of support for the R4 School District for them to proceed on with an application for funding for a SEMA/FEMA tornado shelter
Yes.
for the community.
Show / multi-purpose
Mm-hmm.
area.
So we did sign that letter of support. And then I would mention the county collector, Shannon Van Kirk, reported that tax collection this year went very, very smoothly. And she did report that, she was in here and talked about her new program for prepayment of your taxes, and that over 70 parcels now are signed up on the new prepayment tax program.
And you can sign up anytime.
And you can sign up anytime. They'll work that out with you. You'll have to, to go ahead and pay what would have been the average monthly. She can work that out with
It'll
you.
be a catch-up process. The later you go, the more you'll have to pay per month.
Right, to catch it
Catch
up,
up.
to be ready then for the prepayment to work. So otherwise, if you want some good long late night reading, you can pick up a copy of the
Or all day
of the
reading.
budget. The budget, the tentative budget, if you pick it up, will have the major funds of law enforcement sales tax, the general revenue, the two major jail funds, the operations and the jail trust for payment of the bonds, the 911 fund, the road and bridge fund. Those are the main funds that we and it'll also have the ARPA funds. Those are the main funds that drive the budget. The rest of them are what we call the little budgets. They're in and out budgets, so on. It also does include, of course, the Senate Bill 40 board. That fund budget comes through us. So at any rate, if you want the entire budget, which will really put you to sleep, be sure and let the clerk know. But otherwise, talk to the county clerk's office. But otherwise, I can tell you there are no real big surprises in it. Even with the Department of Revenue thing, we're still in very good shape, and we're very fortunate, very blessed, and appreciate the folks. I've had a lot of people visit with me and mention about it, and a lot of nice comments and things. And basically, people just want to know, are we in trouble? And we're not in trouble. We're fine. We'll get through that. It'll just kind of change how quick we might have wanted to do some things, but we're gonna. It's not gonna. And again, the ARPA fund. I'm kind of like Ron was. I don't like what the federal government's done of borrowing this billions and billions and billions of dollars that our kids and grandkids are going to have to pay back. But that money's there. The ARPA money got sent to us. It's sitting there. And one of the provisions in that is that it can be used for replacement of lost revenue. So
if you don't use it, it will
we're doing
go
those
back.
calculations. It'll be there, and we're going to use it. And if we're not, somebody else is going to. So we're going to use it to the benefit of our citizens one way or another. And if it's replacing lost revenue, then that's what it'll be.
Wanted to thank Ron Copeland for coming in and spending time with us, our
Yep.
state representative. I want to thank Darrel for bringing Ron in and getting you up to date on that. He's got the budget with him. You can pick one up today over at the Denton County Clerk's office if you wish. And again, they are available, and there's no cost to them. They are free.
Yes.
So if you want to go get one, you can go get one. If you just want to get a fund, you can give you one fund.
Yes.
If you just want general revenue, that's fine. They'll give you a general revenue budget if that's
Yep.
all you're really interested
But
in.
we did, and I do want, somebody asked something about it here the other day. What were we doing for raising? I said, well, there is a base COLA raise of 4%. A lot of push on to give 5-6% or more. We're doing a 4%, but we are adjusting some of those pay raises based on years of experience, but raising the base up on most of them for starting, and then also then changing some of those based on years of experience and so on. So pretty good raise, and I think everybody's pretty happy to get that. Is it equal to the 5.5% the state's doing? No, but the state has been getting way behind. They've been getting way behind here for the last several years. So I'm glad to see that they're going to work on that.
All right, very good. Again,
Okay.
Darrel pays for this program. This is not a free program. He does pay for this out of his own pocket. We thank him for doing that. And we do want to tell you we'll be back again come February. It'll be a new month when we come in, Darrel. It's hard to believe January.
Looks like it'll be February the 4th. It's hard to believe, speeding through.
And we'll go over a little bit more of that budget with some numbers, solid numbers for you at that time when it's approved. And so until then, Darrel.
Yep, I do appreciate the opportunity. I hope folks learned a little bit more than what they knew before, and we will be back in a couple of weeks. And until then, I do hope everyone will be safe, happy, healthy, and God bless each and every one of you.